Kiev. A gray late November day. The cold wind pierced through, forcing people to wrap themselves in coats and scarves. Against the backdrop of the gloomy sky, only the wet cobblestones and shop windows glistened from the rain. In one of those shops, a cozy cafe on the second floor, sat Maxim. His gaze slid over the gray landscape outside the window, his thoughts revolving around one topic, the conversation with Uncle Petro, which had taken place an hour ago. Maxim couldn't believe his ears. Uncle Petro, a wealthy and influential man with whom Maxim had complicated relations, had issued him an ultimatum to marry his niece Marta, who, according to Uncle Petro, was pregnant with Maxim's child. Maxim was stunned. He sincerely didn't believe Marta could be pregnant by him. Their relationship, though officially considered an engagement, had long cooled off. They were united only by Uncle Petro's desire to merge two influential clans. Maxim sincerely loved another, Alina, a delicate girl with chestnut hair and sparkling eyes. Their feelings were sincere and deep, but Maxim didn't dare to go against Uncle's will, who kept him on a short leash, providing financial support. Is everything really so terrible? Flashed a thought in Maxim's mind. He felt despair squeezing his chest. Suddenly, the cafe door opened and Alina entered the room. Her face was pale, her eyes filled with anxiety. "Maxim, I need to talk to you urgently," she whispered, sitting across from him. Maxim cast a quick glance at the window where his weary figure was reflected. He knew this conversation couldn't be postponed. "Speak," he croaked, feeling that a moment of truth was approaching in his life. Alina told Maxim that she had learned about his engagement to Marta. Her heart was broken. She couldn't believe Maxim had betrayed her. "I thought we loved each other," she whispered, tears rolling down her cheeks. Maxim remained silent. He didn't know what to say. On the one hand, he sincerely loved Alina, but on the other hand, he feared losing Uncle's support. "I can't live without you," Alina said, her voice trembling. "If you marry that girl, I will never forgive you." Maxim clenched his fists. He understood he had to make a choice. "Give me time," he pleaded. "I'll think everything over and make a decision." Alina nodded, wiped away her tears, and left the cafe. Maxim watched her go, feeling his heart tearing apart. He knew Uncle Petro wouldn't be pleased with his refusal. He could lose everything: wealth, influence, status. But was it worth sacrificing his true love? Maxim left the cafe and walked along the street, not knowing where he was going. He was in despair. His life was reaching a dead end. The next morning, Maxim went to Uncle Petro's. He was ready to do anything to preserve his relationship with Alina. "I can't marry Marta," he said firmly. Uncle Petro was furious. His face was flushed with anger, as if it could burst any moment. He leaped from his chair, his voice thundering like a storm. "You ungrateful pup! Do you realize what you're doing? Marta is pregnant with your child. How dare you even think of abandoning her?" Maxim recoiled from his rage. He protested. "Uncle, I never loved Marta. We are only engaged, but there was nothing between us." Uncle Petro unbuttoned his jacket, breathing heavily. He didn't believe Maxim. Or maybe he did. After all, the marriage with Marta was beneficial not only for Maxim but also for him. The union of two influential families, joint business projects, all of it would collapse if Maxim refused. "You're lying!" Uncle Petro roared. "I saw you kissing her myself. She told me about your meetings." Maxim understood that Marta might have lied to be chosen as his bride. He tried to calm his uncle. "Uncle, please calm down. Let's talk sensibly." Maybe Marta is mistaken. I can't marry her if I don't love her. However, Uncle Petro wasn't going to listen. He threatened. If you refuse, I'll take back everything I've given you. You'll end up on the streets with nothing. And I'll make your beloved Alina suffer too. Maxim clenched his teeth. He knew Uncle Petro wasn't bluffing. He could easily ruin his life. But could one build a life on lies and blackmail? I'm not afraid of you, Maxim said firmly. I'll earn my own living. And Alina loves me even without your money. Uncle Petro snorted disdainfully. You naive boy. Do you think with your education you'll earn much? And love without money fades quickly. Perhaps Uncle Petro was partly right. But Maxim couldn't heed him. He loved Alina, and that was all that mattered. I've made my decision, he said. I won't marry Marta. Uncle Petro saw the determination in his eyes. He realized Maxim wouldn't back down. He trembled with rage. Fine, he gritted through his teeth. You'll regret this. You'll lose everything. Maxim left Uncle Petro's office as if a weight had been lifted off him. He didn't know what lay ahead, but a sense of relief overwhelmed him. He had made his choice. He had chosen love. The following days were tough. Uncle Petro indeed began to seek revenge. He used his connections to make Maxim's job search difficult. He even tried to influence Alina, but her love for Maxim remained as strong as ever. Maxim and Alina understood they had to start from scratch. They found a small apartment where their belongings barely fit. Maxim got a job as a sales manager in a small firm. It wasn't the kind of work he was used to, but it provided him with a means to earn a living. Alina became a florist at a flower shop. She had always dreamt of working with flowers, and now her dream had come true. Though the job was challenging, Alina came home happy every day. They lived modestly but were happy. Their love warmed them like the sun. They helped each other overcome difficulties and build a common future. Together they were strong. One evening, as they dined on spaghetti with cheap wine, Alina suddenly announced, Maxim, I'm pregnant. Maxim nearly dropped his fork in surprise. He had always dreamed of children, but he didn't expect it to happen so soon. Are you serious? He asked, amazed. Alina nodded, her eyes shining with happiness. Yes, I took the test this morning. It's true. Maxim jumped from his chair and rushed to her, embracing her tightly. Joy overwhelmed him. He would be a father. This is wonderful, he exclaimed. I'm so happy. They hugged and kissed like children. When the initial rush of emotions subsided a bit, Maxim pondered. What now? Asked Alina, touching her stomach. We'll manage, Maxim said confidently. It'll be a bit harder, but we'll be a happy family. The following months were challenging. Alina found it difficult to work, often plagued by nausea. Maxim had to take extra shifts to cover the growing expenses. But they didn't complain. They were expecting a child, and that gave them strength. They set up a small nursery, gradually buying necessary items. When their daughter, whom they named Sophia, was born, their lives gained new meaning. Little Sophia resembled Alina, but had Maxim's blue eyes. They didn't sleep at night, but they were the happiest parents in the world. After a few years, their lives began to settle. Maxim became a sales department manager, his career slowly but steadily advancing. Alina opened her own small flower shop. It was small but cozy, and Alina poured her heart into it. They never reconciled with Uncle Petro. He still considered Maxim an ungrateful boy who ruined his plans. But Maxim didn't care. He had a loving wife, a wonderful daughter, and a beloved job. Wasn't that the most important thing in life? One day when Sophia was 5 years old, Alina told Maxim that she had met Marta. She also had a baby girl, said Alina. They live abroad with her husband. And so? Maxim shrugged indifferently. I don't care about her life. I just thought you might be interested to know, replied Alina. Maxim kissed her on the forehead. The only thing I'm interested in is you and Sophia, he whispered tenderly. They hugged, watching their daughter play on the floor. They had come a long way, but love helped them overcome all difficulties. They built their happiness, and that was the most important thing. Let the past remain in the past. The last few years of Maxim's life were peaceful and measured. He achieved success in his career, Alina's flower shop flourished, and their daughter Sophia delighted them with her successes in school. It seemed like nothing could disturb their idyll. One day, returning from work, Maxim accidentally ran into Marta. She had aged, but resentment still glinted in her eyes. Walking beside her was a 10-year-old girl who looked just like Marta, like two peas in a pod. The girl timidly hid behind her mother, her gaze jumping between Maxim and Alina, who happened to be nearby. Maxim's heart grew cold. He remembered that distant day when Marta announced her pregnancy, and suddenly realized that maybe she wasn't lying. Maybe he was indeed the father of this girl. The encounter didn't last long. Marta merely nodded coolly and walked past, leaving Maxim with a whirlwind of thoughts in his head. He couldn't ignore this information. The history he considered long past was resurfacing. At home, during dinner, Maxim couldn't focus on the conversation. He was absent-minded, his gaze constantly wandering around the room. Alina noticed his state. Is something wrong? She asked with concern. Maxim hesitated. He didn't know how to tell her. Eventually, mustering up courage, he told her everything. From the encounter with Marta to his doubts. Alina listened attentively without interrupting. When he finished, she placed her hand on his. We'll figure this out together, she said calmly. If you have a daughter, you deserve to know. But it doesn't change my feelings for you. Her words reassured Maxim, but not completely. The following days were tense. Maxim tried to find Marta through acquaintances, but to no avail. It seemed like she had disappeared. And then, one morning, a stranger woman entered Alina's shop, precisely the Marta they had met on the street. Marta looked much worse than during their previous encounter. She was agitated and nervous. Maxim, she addressed him, her voice trembling. We need to talk. It's about Christina. Maxim was stunned by Marta's appearance in the shop. He felt anger, but also nervousness. What are you talking about? He asked coldly. Then Marta told a story that Maxim couldn't have expected. It turned out she was indeed pregnant with his child, but she had hidden this fact from everyone, fearing judgment. She gave birth to a daughter, Christina, and raised her on her own, working multiple jobs to support the child. However, now she was seriously ill and her treatment required huge sums of money she didn't have. She turned to Maxim for help, not as a former lover, but as a father of her daughter. All this information was a shock to Maxim. He had never suspected the existence of Christina and now felt guilty for not being there for her all these years. He also saw how illness had weakened Marta, and his sympathy for her mixed with anger over the deception. Alina, who listened to it all, squeezed Maxim's hand. She understood his shock and confusion. After much contemplation, Maxim decided to help Marta and Christina. He understood that he couldn't ignore his daughter, but also didn't want to ruin his happiness with Alina. They offered Marta and Christina to stay in Kiev during Marta's treatment. Maxim promised to cover Marta's medical expenses and take care of their accommodation. The first days of adaptation were difficult. Christina, who was used to a modest life with her sick mother, was intimidated by Maxim and Alina's wealth. She felt like an outsider in their family. Alina, being a wise woman, took on the role of building relationships. She treated Christina with warmth and understanding, telling her about her father and showing her around the city. Over time, the ice between them began to melt. Christina saw Alina's sincerity and gradually began to trust her. She also grew closer to Maxim, who tried to make up for lost time. He spent a lot of time with her, telling her interesting stories and buying her gifts. Meanwhile, Marta's treatment was progressing successfully. She was gaining strength and looked better with each passing day. She sincerely thanked Maxim and Alina for their help. There was no longer any enmity between them, only gratitude and respect. However, with Marta's recovery came the question of what would happen next. Marta couldn't stay in Kiev forever, she had her own life. Christina didn't want to leave. She had grown accustomed to the new life, to Alina and Maxim, to Sofia, with whom she had become real friends. Maxim found himself in a difficult situation. It was painful for him to part with the daughter he had just started to get to know. On the other hand, he didn't want to break up his family with Alina, who had always supported him. After long discussions, he and Alina decided that Christina should stay with them. They understood that it would be difficult for her to change everything again and wanted to provide her with stability and love. They informed Marta of their decision. Though saddened, she agreed with them. She saw how happy Christina was with them and understood that she would be better off in such a loving family. There was only one thing left to explain to Sofia. They gathered the children and told them the whole story. Sofia, being a smart girl, understood everything and even rejoiced that she had a sister now. Maxim's life became more complicated but also richer. He learned to be a father to 2 daughters, and his love was enough for them all. Alina became not only his beloved wife but also a reliable friend who was always there for him. Many years passed. Christina fully adapted to her new life. She attended the same school as Sofia, and they became inseparable friends. Thanks to Maxim's help, Marta fully recovered and returned home. She maintained contact with Maxim and the children, occasionally visiting them. Warm, albeit somewhat distant, relationships were established between all of them. One sunny day, while the children were playing in the garden and Maxim and Alina peacefully drank coffee on the terrace, a stranger approached their doorstep. He looked respectable, around 45 years old. Maxim politely inquired whom he was looking for. The man introduced himself as Igor, Marta's ex-husband and Christina's father. The unexpected revelation stunned everyone. Alina was surprised, Maxim was bewildered, and Christina, who happened to overhear the conversation from the window, ran out to the terrace with a bewildered look. Igor explained that he divorced Marta many years ago when Christina was still very young. He didn't maintain contact with them because he considered himself a bad father. But now, learning that Christina was alive and well, he decided to find her. Igor's appearance complicated the situation. Christina didn't know how to react to this unexpected encounter. She only remembered fragments from her childhood related to her father but didn't have a close relationship with him. Maxim and Alina understood the girl's confusion. They decided to give her time to think everything over and get to know Igor. The following days were tense. Igor tried to mend his relationship with his daughter, telling her about himself and giving her gifts. Christina hesitated, unsure if she could trust this stranger. One evening during a family dinner, Christina gathered her courage and asked Maxim, "Dad, who is my real father, you or Igor?" Maxim stroked her head and replied, "The father is the one who loves and raises. Igor is your biological father, but I will always be here, supporting you and being your rock. You will decide for yourself who to consider your father." Maxim's words touched Christina. She realized that she had two loving families and she didn't necessarily have to choose between them. Later, life took a new turn. Igor maintained contact with Christina and they occasionally met. But it was Maxim who remained the main father figure for her, the man who was there during the toughest times and whom she sincerely loved. The story of Maxim, Alina, Christina, Sofia, and Igor is a story of difficult choices, of love and forgiveness, of the understanding that family can be diverse, but the most important thing is for it to be filled with love and mutual understanding. Thank you for being with us today. I hope that this story has brought you emotions. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel and click on the bell so you don't miss any of our new stories. Thank you for your support. You are the best.